Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video from InsideWire. In this video, I'm going to show you 4 simple steps to get your IoT devices on a secure network away from your regular devices. Now I hear the question, why? And I'll get to that in just a second. But just before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button for new videos every week. So let's start with what are IoT devices. So IoT stands for Internet of Things. IoT devices can be found on your network that transmit data from itself to another device or out to the internet. Now you might be thinking at this point, well, all my devices do this on the network. And you would be right to a certain extent. However, a lot of these devices that you probably have conform to a certain security standard, which makes them a little bit more safer on your network. However, these are not the same concept as IoT. So you may ask yourself the next question, which is what devices do I have on my network which are probably less secure? So going through my network, there are probably smart TVs, Alexa, Google Home, smart locks, CCTV cameras, Chromecast or Fire Stick, or any other real smart devices in your house such as lighting, thermostats, etc, etc. The list can go on and on. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your IoT network and add a few devices on there, such as, for example, in my case, I'm going to add my heating, my Google Chromecast, and I'll actually demo how to do the Chromecast while your phone is on another network, and I will add a Raspberry Pi on there as well. So let's get to it. As always, we start by logging into our UDM Pro, going to our network, and then jumping across to our device. So let's start with step number 1, which is to create a network for you to have your devices on there. So you're creating a virtual LAN for this. So let's start by going to settings and networks, and then we're going to add a new network. So let's just call this IoT. And then we're not going to have any VPN settings, neither are we going to have any content filtering, so we'll get rid of those, or we won't select any of those, sorry. We go to advanced. I'm going to give it VLAN 107 because it's the most similar number that looks like IoT. No domain name at the moment. We're not doing device isolation or any snooping. We don't want to auto scale our network. We want to have control over this. So let's do 10.107.1.1/24. And then we go to auto configure down here, and you can see it's set a DHCP range for you, but I'm going to change this to 100 to 100. Sorry, I'm going to change this to 10.107.1.100 to 10.107.1.254. So 154 IPs in terms of a DHCP range, but I still have 1 to 99 that I can use via a static IP method. Sorry, 2 to 99. DHCP auto, DHCP name server auto, and I think that's all we need to set in here. So let's click apply. And that is step 1 for the IoT network. So we have the LAN set up. Step 2 is we're going to create the Wi-Fi network itself. So we go to add new Wi-Fi network. We're going to call this IoT. We're going to give this a password. Then we look at the network. So we're just going to call it, we're going to move this across to IoT because that's the network we want it on. That's the network we want to be. When someone joins that IoT network, we want to join it to the physical or the virtual IoT network. Scrolling down, we'll go with both for now. We want both my access points displaying this. I will say that you probably want to hide your Wi-Fi name just because you don't want other people to find it. But when you go to join a device, you can either turn it back on if you don't want to type it in, or just type it in manually, one of the two. That is all we need to set up on this one, I believe. So let's apply the changes just there. Let's wait for that to get set up. So now that network is set up, the step number 3 is to create your firewall rules. So how I'm going to do this is let's just go to security. Internet Threat Management. Once that loads, go down to the bottom and click on Firewall. So there is a bunch of stuff here. I have very briefly touched on firewalls in some of my other videos, so if you want to take a look, go and check it out. We have three sections here, so Internet LAN and Guest, which is for IPv4, and Internet LAN and Guest for IPv6, depending on what you're using. So I'm using IPv4 across my network at the moment, so we want to look at the LAN because we're using two local networks and we're not going out to the internet. Neither have we set any of those networks as guest. If we had, we would probably be looking at this tab as well. So the first thing you want to do, and I will try and explain this without having to actually draw anything on the screen. So you have two networks. If you imagine you have two networks, you have IoT and LAN. So the way the firewall ruling is first is you put it basically works down the list. So it will go through each list and see if it meets this requirement, and then it will stop there. So generally you have all your accepts first, and then you have all your drop packets at the bottom. What some people use as a rule of thumb is to be very specific with your accept rules and be very broad with your deny rules. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the bottom one first. So we actually want anything from your IoT network to your LAN to drop. So let's go to LAN in. So this is IoT to LAN drop. So anything that comes from the IoT network across to your normal LAN network, you want it to drop. You want this to apply after all the rules and the action to be drop. That's across all IPv4 protocols. So the source address is we're going to use actually a network, so anything from IoT. So IPv4 subnet or MAC address, we don't need to specify these, and your destination is a network, which is LAN. So anything that comes from, so if I just scroll up, anything that comes from a source of an IoT network to a destination of a LAN network. Let's just click on advanced and see if there's anything here. We don't need to tick anything this at the moment, but this does become crucial a little bit later on. So let's apply that for now. So there you go, there you can see that rule that's been created just here. So just before I create the other two rules, so there's three rules we need in total to get started with our IoT network. Just before I do that, I'm going to actually put in a Raspberry Pi on the IoT network because I actually want to show you how the traffic starts and stops, and I want something to be pingable on the other side and something I can ping from the other side to this side. So let me just get that set up and I'll show you how I'm quickly going to do that. So I know from my device, if I go to devices, and if I look at my switch, I know my Raspberry Pi is plugged into here at the moment. So I'm just going to change that to the IoT network. So I'm going to tag it on that port and click apply. And just while that gets applied and I go back to the firewall rules, I'm quickly just going to go power on that Raspberry Pi. Right, now that that's on, I'm just gonna, I know I've already picked up the IP for it, so the IP is 10.107.1.253. Just for example, I want to show you this, ping 10.107.1.253. So this is on my local machine, so if I just quickly do an ifconfig, oh, let's try that again. Ifconfig, if I scroll up, too many adapters, you will see, there you go, there's my IP address, 10.1.1.102. Okay, so if I just try and ping this, you'll see there's no response, and there's a reason for that. So for something like ping, what happens is it sends the packet across and the packet needs to come back. So now as it stands at the moment, we're not allowing anything to come back. So there are a couple more rules that we need to set up. So the next one we're going to do is LAN in, and then we will go IoT to LAN established or related. Now, let's spell that right. When I told you earlier about those additional rules that we're going to need, so IoT to LAN, establish or related. We go to accept, source, we go to network, and then we go from IoT, scroll down a little bit, IoT to, and then we go to a network again, and we go LAN. So what we do now, if we click apply, we're basically blanking out the rule that we've just created. We're basically saying anything that comes from IoT to LAN, just accept it. But we don't want to do that. So what we actually want to do is we want to go anything that is actually established or related. So what that means is if something comes from LAN to IoT and it's already established, we want it to go back from IoT to LAN. So what we do here is, well, let's just apply this. So let's just check that rule to make sure it's applied. So firewall, LAN. Okay, so anything from IoT to LAN, established or related, we want to accept that. So let's have a look how that works. So from my local machine again, if I ping it, I'm getting a response, which is great. Okay, so that means now, if I just go to this side, if I go to clear, if I try to SSH to 10 pi at 10.107.1.253, you see I can get across to it now, so it's asking for a password. So let's just type in a password, and there we go, we're in. So actually what I have now is, this is my local machine here, and this is my Raspberry Pi. So what I'm going to try and do now, just to show you this, if I go to ping 10.1.1.102, it's actually not going to respond at all. So you can see it transmitted 6 packets, it received 0 back, so 100% packet loss. So just one thing I want to show you here, if I actually edit this and go down to the bottom and get rid of these 2 rules and click apply and say, hey, everything from this network come across. If I jump across here now and click this, you can see I'm getting a response because we're just allowing everything through. So let's jump back across and we go to security, down to firewall, too far, LAN, and let's change this back. If we scroll down to advanced, let's change this to established or related, and we click apply. Again, going back to here, if I try and ping this again, I'm getting no response again. So our firewall rules take immediate effect. Just one more thing to add here, if I try and ping it from my local machine again, I can still get a response, but I'm not getting a response from the other side. So one more thing before our IoT network is set up. So this is still included with step 3. So we just need to go to advanced features, and we want to make sure multicast DNS is enabled. And I'll come to this again in a minute. I'll come to this actually later on in the video when I do the Chromecast demo. So we want to make sure this is enabled before you go to the next step. So next was to demo a couple of things on that network just to show you that they still work. So you can see I've already done the Raspberry Pi, so that's already on another network. So if I go to my clients quickly and jump down here, you can see it is on the IoT network just here. So the next couple of things I want to demo is, one is the Neo Hub. So this is one device just here. This is actually my underfloor heating. So what I'm going to do here, I know this is plugged into port 3, so what I'm going to go across here and do is have a look at port 3. All the profiles are set to all, so I'm going to change this to IoT and click apply and give that a few minutes and let that update its DHCP address. So we're expecting that to come back with a 10.107 address. Okay, so I've just let that refresh and we can see that we have an address of 10.107.1.195, which is good. So I am just going to quickly go on to my phone just to show you my screen. So I've logged into my app and this is my underfloor heating. So you can see that I'm still fully connected to it. I can still set stuff up and it's showing me exactly what I need to see. So, and just to show you where my phone is connected, if I go to settings, you can see I'm joined onto my home network, and that is on my IoT network. So the final thing I want to show you is the Google Chromecast on another network. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is I'm going to have my Google Chromecast on the IoT network and my phone on my existing home network, and I want to show you how we cast from your phone across to the screen, and you're going across the network as well, which is exactly what we're wanting to do. So I tried to connect up my Chromecast to my camera capture software, but unfortunately I couldn't get it working for whatever reason, and I'm not going to spend too much time trying to get it to work, or even if it does work, so you're just going to have to take my word for it at the moment. But I'm going to pop up the Chromecast setup on my phone on the screen at the moment, so have a little look at that. So we're now in the Google Home app, so what I'm going to do is click Setup Chromecast, select Next, and now it's going to go across your network and look for your device. So it's going to try and connect to the Chromecast device, saying it's found it, so we click Next. Now let it go off and connect. So just while it's off connecting, there are going to be circumstances where you actually want your IoT network to talk back to your device. Sorry, let me just continue this and then I'll continue my train of thought. No thanks, and we're just going to put it in the office and click Next. So we're going to choose a network that we want it to connect to, and we want it to connect to IoT. So we click Next, and let's type in the password for the IoT network. We click Connect, let that go off and connect to the Wi-Fi. So as I was saying, there's probably going to be times where you're going to want your smart TV, for example, to connect to your Plex server, or if you're running a specific DNS service. So you're going to have to allow specific ports from your IoT devices into your network. If this is something you want to see, drop me a comment in the section below, and I will see if I can get something recorded that shows this. So the reason it's telling me please connect to IoT is because my phone is connected to a different network. So initially, just while the setup is happening, you are going to have to connect to the other network. So let's just do that. So let's go to IoT, join that. Okay, there we go. So now it's linking your Chromecast to your account, so we click continue. No thanks. And yeah, let's just click next and skip tutorial and finish tutorial. So we now have our Chromecast set up. So I'm going to show you how this works. So if I click on clients, I can now see my address just here. There is two, but I know if I try and ping this one, it's not active. So I'll come back to that point in a second. So what I'm actually going to do on my phone, let me just bring my phone back up on the screen. I'm just going to go and change back to my original network. So let's go there. And you can see I'm joined back to that network, and just to show you, let's go ahead and forget this network so we no longer remember it. I wanted to load the YouTube app. So just turning this here, if I go ahead and click on this now, you can see my Office TV shows up right here. So I can click on that and it's going to go off and play it on the Office TV. So you can't actually see it at this point, but it is playing on there. So it's fairly simple to get this set up. So this is where that key information around the MDNS was. We needed that to be set up properly. So once that's configured, it allows the Chromecast to go across the network and work that way. Without going too much into the technical details of how MDNS works and how it affects Google Chromecast. So those were the 4 simple steps to remember. So create an IoT network, create a Wi-Fi network with the IoT LAN addresses, create your firewall rules and MDNS, and then join your devices to that network and test them. I really hope you found this video useful and helpful. In just 4 simple steps, you can get started with your IoT network to make it a little bit more safer. This is not to say that it cannot be made even more secure. There are further rules that you can implement, such as locking down to a specific IP or even locking down to a specific port. This would make it a lot more harder for devices to contact other things. As always, be sure to hit that like button if you've enjoyed this. And if you want to see a part 2 where I open the firewall to allow devices to talk back into my network, for example, if you have a Plex server or a DNS server or a DNS service, then let me know in the comments below and I can see what I can do. For now, this is InsideWire and I'll see you in the next one.